But first, a blockbuster letter gets dropped on President Obama, and this is a telling test. Does President Obama want a quick and definitive answer on whether the new health care law is constitutional or not, so that the nation, meaning you, and the states can plan your own health care? Or is he playing games with you? Here's what just happened. 28 Republican governors have sent a letter to President Obama demanding a fast track to the Supreme Court. The letter urges the president to ask the Justice Department, Attorney General Eric Holder, to join the 28 governors in asking the Supreme Court for an expedited decision on the constitutionality of the health care legislation. Florida Governor Rick Scott signed the letter. He joins us from Tallahassee. Good evening, Governor.
Good evening. How are you doing tonight?
I'm very well. All right. In your state, you have the 26 or 28 states, whatever it is, who have won the decision from the court that the mandate and the entire statute is unconstitutional. It can either linger through the courts of appeals or it can go immediately to the Supreme Court to fast track. Why do you want fast tracked?
Well, we want to find out. First off, it's costing us money if we try to implement it, so I'm not going to implement it until I know what happens. I believe it's unconstitutional, but let's get the Supreme Court to decide so we know. So if we're going to implement it, let's implement it. I hope it doesn't happen, of course, but we've got to get this decided and get it behind us. So it costs us money. On top of that, it's killing jobs. So many people in this state, business people, are worried about hiring people because of Obamacare. Let's find out if it's constitutional or not.
Are you essentially in limbo? Is that a good way to describe it, in the sense that you don't want to spend a lot of money in case it is unconstitutional? On the other hand, you don't want to sit back and not prepare for it if it is constitutional.
Greta, we're not going to spend a dime. We're not going to do anything. I believe it's unconstitutional, but we're not going to do anything. But it's fair to our states, fair to the great state of Florida, that we know whether it's constitutional or not. So if we have to implement it, let's find out. But I believe it's unconstitutional. We're not going to spend the money, but we're in limbo right now.
You know, I call it a test for President Obama because, for the life of me, I can't see why anyone doesn't want this decided quickly. And it seems so abundantly clear to me that it's either, that the Supreme Court is going to decide this. It's a very simple issue, an extremely important one. And there's just, why throw up the barriers if indeed he's going to? Maybe he will ask the Attorney General to join you.
Yeah, I hope he does. Let's get it behind us. Let's figure it out so we can go on and figure out what we're going to do next. Because, we're not going to do the exchange. We're not going to spend any money to implement this, and we're just going to have a dispute with the federal government over it. So let's figure it out.
Have you gotten any word from the federal government whether they are at least thinking about joining in a request with the litigation down in Florida to fast track? Have you heard anything?
Not a word. I was in to see Catherine Sebelius the other day, and of course she's going forward, assuming it's constitutional, and she's just pushing every day.
What do you agree with me that there's no reason to hold this up? I mean, have you heard any reason why not to get this decided one way or another?
No, there's no reason to wait. The best thing for our states, the best thing for all citizens of America is let's find out whether it's constitutional or not. If they decide it's not constitutional, great. Then we can just figure out what else we're going to do to fix health care and do it the right way. If they declare constitutional, then we can say, okay, what can we do to improve it? Or repeal it, whatever we're going to do.
Have you, in terms of the governors, obviously they're all Republican governors, have you spoken to any Democratic governors to see if they want to urge a fast decision on this? Because the decision does declare the statute unconstitutional, not just for those states, but unconstitutional and spreads across the country.
Sure. They haven't joined in yet. None of them have talked to me about doing it. I wish they would. They have the same problem I have. It's costing us money. We're in limbo. We want to know. It just doesn't make sense. Let's get it behind us.
Governor, thank you. And if you hear from the federal government, do let us know immediately. We're very curious to see what happens. Thank you, sir.
All right, great.
Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell joins us on the phone. Governor, Virginia is a little bit different because you have a separate case from the one down in Florida. Because you have a statute that says you can't force people in Virginia to pay the mandate. So yours went on a separate track. But you have already asked the Supreme Court, your state, is that right, to have a fast track?
We did. We filed yesterday, Greta, in the Supreme Court asking under Rule 11 that this is a matter of national importance and therefore qualifies for fast track to the United States Supreme Court. Then Governor Scott, who you just had on, we got 28 Republican governors, all but Oklahoma. They have a separate lawsuit, so they will look at their options later. But all of us have asked the President to direct the Justice Department to agree with our motion in Florida and in Virginia to fast-track this. People want certainty, they want finality. We don't need 3 more years of litigation. We need this in the Supreme Court, have the constitutionality decided, and then we can decide whether we implement the law or don't.
Let me get this straight. Have you actually filed in the Supreme Court asking that, number one? And number two, if you have, I take it that first you went to the Justice Department and said, will you join us in this request to fast-track it so we could know once and for all?
Well, they told us after the ruling that they were not supportive of the concept of a fast track. At least that was their public statement. So we filed on our own yesterday. We were hoping it would be a joint motion, but Virginia filed yesterday a motion for fast track under Rule 11 of the United States Supreme Court. And then today, 28 of us sent a letter to President Obama asking him to direct the Justice Department to change their view. Because, Greta, I tell you, families and business people and healthcare providers just want to know, is this constitutional or not? There's a great national debate about it. We think it's not. It's a simple, it's a direct constitutional issue under the Commerce Clause, under the Tax and Spend Clause, and so there's no need to go through a bunch of intermediate appellate courts. The United States Supreme Court is going to make the decision on constitutionality and can make it probably within a year. Let's not have a couple of years of litigation.
Governor, I think it can be done in 60 days, frankly. It's not going to take a year because it's a really refined, simple issue that doesn't need to be briefed. And I think that anyone who opposes it, if the federal government opposes it, they're just playing games, and they're not really trying to get to solving an important issue, because everybody needs to know one way or the other. And this should be done in 60 days, not a year.
Well, it could. The United States Supreme Court on these pressing matters can move much quicker. I know the Fourth Circuit has already agreed to expedite their appeal. I think certainly if the United States Supreme Court took it, they could do it as well. And you're correct. It doesn't take a lot of briefing. There's a standing issue, a Commerce Clause issue, and a Tax and Spend Clause issue, and I think the court could move it along faster. And it's just good for America. No matter what your view is on the policy, whether you're for or against Obamacare, everybody wants certainty and finality. It's costing us tens of millions of dollars among the governors around the state to implement this, to hire staff and get computer programs up and running, put exchanges in place. We need an answer.
Governor, thank you, sir. And let us know if you hear any word from the Supreme Court or the White House. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Greta.